Now we're going to talk about comments made by Shaq. Shaq subtly said during an NBA TV telecast uh, of the NBA Finals, he somewhat hinted that he wasn't the best player during his time playing for the Lakers. And of course, he played with Kobe during the time for the Lakers, somewhat implying that Shaq is at this point copping to the idea that Kobe was the best player on the Lakers and not Shaq. Now, yes, I am a Kobe stan, but those are Shaq's words, not mine. So let me be clear
Yeah,
about that. I'm
no,
not
no.
saying
Are you sure about
this
that?
is what Shaq is saying. This is not me. This is not JV Wynn saying this. This is what Shaq is saying. We're just talking about what he said.
All
All right.
right. Okay.
So this says Shaquille O'Neal makes candid Kobe Bryant admission to give Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown finals advice. Shaquille O'Neal shared some advice for Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown during NBA TV's pregame coverage of the NBA Finals on Sunday night. In doing so, he reflected on his relationship as a teammate with Kobe Bryant during their Los Angeles Lakers title runs. He admitted that he was never the best player on the team and had to accept being the second option for the team to succeed. Quote, in my Laker runs, I wasn't the best player on the team, O'Neal admitted. I knew that, but I knew I was the most dominant. So I knew my role. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't worried about these useless titles. So if those two young gentlemen talking about Tatum and Brown are worried about useless titles, it will definitely affect them tonight. Not only affect them this game, but they will lose the series. So I think there's a video of Shaq saying this. Yeah, here it is. So I might have to open up a new link real quick. Let me see. Okay, no, I should be good. All right, so here's Shaq saying all of this stuff about him not being the best player when he played for the Lakers.
A canny move from Jason Kidd. He's been around the block a time or two. And Shaq, you immediately reacted thinking this is going to have an effect tonight somehow.
Yeah, I think if you're worried about useless titles, when I was young, I worried about useless titles, but when I stopped worrying about useless titles, start winning championships. In my Laker runs, I wasn't the best player on the team. I knew that, but I knew I was the most dominant. So I knew my role. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't worried about a useless title. So if those two young gentlemen are worried about useless titles, who's the best on the team, whose team it is, it will definitely affect them tonight. Jalen has been playing well, and that's why when you're a boxer, the one or the two can knock you out. Either I haven't seen a lot of great fighters get knocked out by the jab. I haven't seen a lot of great fighters get knocked out by the knockout punch. This is the first time I actually seen these guys play up close. And Jalen Brown had a fabulous game, but Tatum does a great job of getting everybody else involved. He's a little different than myself, Steve, and Grant, because at this point in our career, I'm going to get it, man. I'm letting the world know. But he came out, he used his aggression, he let everybody get involved, which gives this guy, Jalen Brown, room to operate. So, again, if these two young gentlemen are worried about useless titles, whose team it is, who's the best player, not only will it affect this game, but they will lose the series.
What's this nigga wearing, bro?
I don't like the Celtics, but Jalen Brown is a baller.
He's balling, man.
Yeah, Jalen Brown is a baller. So what do you make of what Shaq said there?
Well, I'm glad he admitted it. I'm glad he admitted it. I agree with that. So as a hater of the Lakers, I was more than objective about their title runs. How many Kobe got? 5.
Yeah.
I'm already taking one away for the Kings series. I'm already taking one away for that. That's how objective I am. So I didn't care for their run. I felt as though they were getting a lot of privileged calls, and it was more than just that King series or that year. But with that being said, me being so objective with this, while I was watching in those moments, Shaq was the most dominant player, but he clearly wasn't the most skilled basketball player on the court at the time. And so the person that you really had to worry about was Kobe, if Kobe really got in his back. Because one thing that Shaq was going to do was he was going to clog up the paint, do his thing, but you didn't know if today was going to be the day where he's going to miss a lot of free throws. It's going to take you out of it. You didn't know if he was going to get into foul trouble. You didn't know what was going to go on. So Shaq was always the kind of the wild card kind of thing, but the one stable person that I knew that I could count on to hate on was Kobe. Yeah, it was Kobe because he was just going to do stuff, and I know Shaq could be limited, but I knew if Kobe if he wanted to be on that day, then there was nothing that anybody can do to stop it. So I'm glad he admitted that. It took some, big standing up to do. I heard so many stories on the back end, especially that run that Kobe had when he was dropping all those 40-point performances.
Mm-hmm.
And then he about to set a record, but Shaq is there. And Phil Jackson got to tell him he got to tell Kobe hey, man, fall back, bro. We're about to lose Shaq. And the reason why they had to keep having those moments of we're about to lose Shaq is because Shaq could clearly see that this guy puts in the work while I'm sleeping. He puts in the work while I'm not putting in the work. And while he's on the floor at Kobe, that is out there shining and performing at a high level, Shaq can clearly see why he's doing that at that moment, because he sees the work that he's putting in. He also knows that the only reason why he's doing what he's doing is because of his freakish nature of being that tall and being athletic. That's Shaq, that is. And so Shaq, his dominance came from him being such a big person and being athletic with that. Not to say that he didn't have skills, but if Shaq was as skilled as Kobe, we'll be having a whole bunch of different conversations of who the greatest player of all time was. So Shaq has a very good point here. And I like that how he was shooting it straight, not holding any punches. I really appreciate his honor of Kobe even before his passing, because he was giving Kobe his flowers before he even passed. So Shaq is just continuing that trend here. Last thing I'll say before I let you go, this Brown and Tatum thing, a very interesting dynamic, man. I like the little wrench that Jason Kidd threw in there, saying that Jaylen Brown's better. I was, sowing division. I like that. Great attempt. It looked like they took the bait, at least in interviews, but they still came out and showed out for game 2. So we'll see what happens for game 3. But overall, I like the advice for these young men. Hopefully they take heed, but who knows what's brewing in that locker room. But what are your thoughts, man, on Sir Shaq admitting that, hey, he wasn't even the most best player on his team? What are your thoughts?
I agree as well. Which should come as no surprise.
Boo.
Now, now the numbers are not going to support that. The numbers won't support that. In 2000, when they played the Pacers in the finals, Shaq was putting up 38 a game. Kobe was putting up 16 a game. Shaq was putting up 17 rebounds. Kobe had 5. Now, Kobe had him in assists and steals. But then Shaq would have him in blocks. And then in 2001, when they gentlemen swept the Sixers, Kobe was putting up 25 a game. Shaq was putting up 33 a game. Shaq with his 16 rebounds a game. Kobe had 8 rebounds a game. Kobe once again had him in assists and steals, and then Shaq would have him in blocks 3-1. And then in 2002, when they beat the then New Jersey Nets, Shaq 36 a game, Kobe 27 a game. Shaq 12 rebounds a game, Kobe 6 rebounds a game. Again, Kobe has him in assists and steals, of course. And then Shaq coming in with the blocks 3-1. So the numbers don't support that. But the thing that's interesting about basketball is you actually watch it. And putting myself back in the mind frame of watching these games, I can remember vividly the way I always felt like the opponent, whether not the Sixers, I never felt like the Sixers had a chance.
They didn't.
A one-man band man with Iverson. But the Nets and the Pacers, there were moments throughout those series where I felt like they could possibly win if they exploited certain weaknesses. But then Kobe would just do stuff, and the Lakers would win the game. Now, Shaq would still dominate the paint and put up his numbers.
Right.
but they also ran an orchestrated offense in the triangle that made the effort to feed the post. It's kind of the way that system is designed. It's not
Mhm.
freewheeling like that,
Mhm.
which, as an aside, always makes the numbers comparison between Kobe and LeBron laughable to me because nobody ever brings that up. Like for Kobe's entire career, while he was in his prime and even after that, he mostly played in a system that wasn't necessarily predicated on him compiling all of these counting numbers. Whereas LeBron was the system and continues to be the system, so he can just pick up all of these numbers because it just operates around him, and then everybody says he's better because of the numbers. But
Mhm.
not to bring LeBron into it, that's just an aside. But like I watched the games and Shaq would do his thing. They run a triangle, and the Lakers sometimes would get into a little bit of trouble in certain games. You know, they would end up dominating for the most part overall in terms of the outcome. But during the games, things would get a little hairy, and then Kobe would just do stuff and just get the team out of it. Especially at the end of the game because Shaq wasn't reliable at the free throw line, and
Right.
Kobe was always reliable at the free throw line. So I always felt like Shaq was the most physically imposing player,
Right.
and he was uniquely built to accommodate the triangle. And he was a great player. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but with
Mhm.
my eyes, I always felt like individually Kobe was a superior player, even though he had yet to come into his own in terms of his prime. Now, right around 2002, when Shaq started becoming less reliable with his injuries and he was getting toe injuries and sitting out games because his big toes messed up and he has other things going on where Kobe now becomes the number one guy and Kobe's flying all over the place doing crazy windmill reverse dunks and scoring 40 and 50 a game and the Lakers are winning the game. I was like, oh no, it's out of control. Like at that point, it was like, okay, this guy's the best player in the league to me, bar none. I don't care what anybody says, even if he is playing with Shaq. Um, and it just became so obvious to me, but Shaq was still on the team and he sort of carried such a massive shadow, or rather, he casted such a massive shadow because of who he was. But after the three-peat, well, during the third year of the three-peat, and then continuing on into 2004 before eventually Shaq got traded to the Heat in the summer of 2004, to me, it became clear who the better player was. And I think eventually, in retrospect, Kobe became vindicated, especially when he went back to back in 2009 and 2010 and Shaq got carried by Dwayne Wade and referees in 2006 when he won his fourth championship with the Heat. So that's just my opinion. A lot of the smart people on TV will always ride for Shaq in this way, and that's fine. I accept that. But I always felt like Kobe was better. And mind you, oddly enough, I didn't even start liking Kobe until the end of the Kobe Shaq Lakers. Like 2000 to 2002, I was always rooting against them. I wanted the Sacramento Kings to win so bad. And one of the more crushing memories of my sports watching life was when Robert Ory hit that three
I
against the
could not
Kings
believe it. I
in
couldn't
in,
believe it.
in in game, what was that, game 5, because the Lakers would, no, it was game 4, because the Lakers would have went down 3-1 that series. Like that was it. Like the Kings were up 2-1 in LA getting ready to go back to Sacramento, and Robert Ory hits that damn three
Couldn't believe it.
and they win the game, and the rest is history. The Lakers end up winning in 7 games. Like I was rooting against the Lakers so hard back then. But once it became clear to me, okay, Kobe's the number one guy in the league to me, um, it was over as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I agree. The numbers won't support it. They say he's the most dominant player ever, whatever. The numbers won't support it. And this provides an interesting nexus of how do you weight skill versus overall effectiveness in terms of how you evaluate one particular player over another. Like how much do you weight skill versus all of this other stuff? So like for me, to me, skill is a big deal. It's one of my 3 pillars in terms of how I look at players in terms of how good they really are. It's an equal parts for me: skill, individual achievement, and then like championships. All 3 of them to me are equally weighted. And I've which means I put skill in a high regard.
Mhm.
And you can be a very effective player, but I can kind of see through that. And if there's other guys who are effective and they're more skilled, and they're actually a plus in the plus minus column when it comes to winning, unlike people like Kyrie Irving, then I'm going to say that I think that guy was better. So yeah, I'm Team Kobe all day.
Yeah, man. That was that Robert Ory shot. That one hurt. Outside of Heat games where shots hurt my feelings, Jordan's shot on Russell hurt me. That crushed me. It's not like I even liked the Jazz. I just wanted Jordan to lose. And then when he hit that shot, I was like, this bastard, man. That Robert Ory shot was gut-wrenching.
It was devastating. Yeah.
I believe it. I was literally hopping up and down mad when that happened. And then I can't remember the exact moment, but I think Derek Fisher has one too, where he hit like a very important three in the corner for a game winner. Pissed me the hell off. I was really cheering against the Lakers, man. I was big time hater, dog. I ain't gonna lie. So that's why I said it was towards the end of Kobe's career where I started to be, I started to appreciate what I was watching more. And so if Shaq, like I mentioned earlier, if Shaq took his job as seriously as Kobe did, because Shaq was more talented, in my opinion, especially as far as a phenom, than Kobe was. Like Kobe had to do a lot of extra work to live up to his potential. Shaq had so much potential that he didn't even tap into. There's no reason he should shoot free throws like that, amongst other things. And I don't think he worked on his game hard enough. And so Shaq knows that. And so from his perspective, he knew that there were times where, even though, like you mentioned in the box score, Shaq had 36 and 15 that night, he knew that Kobe carried him that night. And so, as crazy as that sounds,
right? Yeah.
And so and like you said, for Kobe to do it on the redemption tour with just Paul Gasol, he had Lamar Odom and stuff like that, but let's be serious, it was just Paul Gasol, and he did it off muscle. So yeah, man, you got to respect that. So yeah, man, I mean, I still got Kobe way up there high on my list, man. He's not. I still think that there's people, better than him, but he's still high up there on my list. And what I put Kobe ahead, I have been putting Kobe ahead of Shaq. So, it's just that if I'm starting a franchise, who am I picking though? It's kind of hard to not pick Shaq. Though.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still, I mean, I don't care. Give me 6'2", 300 pounds. I don't care. Give me that. And then y'all figure out the rest. So I like that. And for Jaylen Brown and Tatum, to get back on that real quick, I had a discussion with a homeboy a couple years ago, talking about these two, and I'm sitting here playing daily fantasy, so I watch games that I normally wouldn't watch, and I'm watching Celtics games on the weekends or whatever. And Jaylen Brown has his moments, but when Jaylen Brown decided to tap in that day, he was more unstoppable than Jason Tatum when Jason Tatum decided to tap in. So it was a hot take at the moment. But I said, hey, if I'm starting a franchise and I had to pick between one of these two, then I'm taking Jaylen Brown.
And that is a hot take.
That was a hot take, especially 2 years ago. But I played enough daily fantasy to watch these guys' metrics to see how their trends and performances are. And I was more sold on Jaylen Brown as being more stable than Tatum was. And this series, what it showed me, for the most part, is that Tatum has been reduced to a role player, as he should. As he should. So, because if Tatum had to be number one star guard and, he had to fill it up for these guys to win, and he's taking up all the shot and being valued, then he would be taken away from the greatness that we're watching. But the guys on his team are so good that, today it's Holiday. Yesterday it was Porzingis. Tomorrow it might be Derek White. And he don't have to drop 30 and get 10, even though he can, but he doesn't have to do that. And that was the best. That's the way he should have been playing the whole time as a teammate, Because if Tatum was just being a teammate and a very high tier role player, then we won't be having these discussions of them losing so many times in the playoffs. Same thing goes for a lot of these air quote superstars that's floating around the NBA right now. There are too many people. Just because you're the best player on your team doesn't make you a superstar or a max player. That just means you're the best player on that team. Even though you're the best player on the team, you should be the third best player on somebody's team. And so right now, what we're witnessing right now is Tatum is the clear number 2 right now, what we're witnessing. But then sometimes he's the third best on the floor or even the fourth. And but rightfully so, because at that point, when a guy like Tatum is actually the third or best person on the floor, who's going to beat your team? You're going to be blowing people out by 20. So I think more teams need to take heed to this and structure their teams differently so they can have attacks all over the floor. They don't have to be max guys all over the place, just highly talented, well-played basketball players. So if the Celtics win, I credit the Heat for this. Yeah, I'm giving the Heat credit because we the ones that bust them up enough to show them how to win. And we gave them some true dog fights. And they had to basically brace themselves to beat us. And now they're beating everybody because of that. So shout out to the Heat, man. I'm still going to take credit for this. If the Celtics win.
Tatum is an interesting player. He has physical superstar ability, but I just don't think he's a superstar player. And I think it's due to his approach to playing. Well, first of all, real quick to your comment about the Celtics, I think it takes an organization that runs itself well to know how to actually put a roster together. And I think what we're seeing clearly across all professional sports, not just in the NBA, but most organizations don't know how to put rosters together. They don't know how to be well run. And there are so many of them that have other interests ahead of like winning championships. They want to get a marquee superstar player so that they can actually have the organization make money in terms of like tickets and season tickets and like marketing and all of that. So there's a lot of those other considerations that certain organizations care about more than others. And I think the Celtics are one of those organizations that just wants to win. And they have smart people working in the organization that know how to put rosters together. And most organizations across professional sports don't. So I guess respect to them for that. But when it comes to Tatum, his approach to playing basketball is what limits his ability to be an actual superstar, because his shot selection, in my opinion, is deplorable. He's what is he, 6'8"? Like he's 6'8". He has a physical advantage over every single matchup on any given night in which he plays in the game. Yet he insists on relegating himself to step back, sidestep, threes, and jump shots, and just high degree difficulty shots. And one thing Charles Barkley has always said, and I believe this to be true, is the measure of a good player and the measure of a good team is his and its ability to generate easy baskets. Like, I don't like LeBron, but one thing that I will say about LeBron, if LeBron give the ball up, he gonna be making cuts. He gonna be trying to go for these lobs. He gonna be getting them backdoor screens. You know what I'm saying? He gonna be shading the guy with the little shimmy so that he can get into the paint to get layups. He gonna be getting to the free throw line, getting free throws. Jason Tatum does none of that. Jason Tatum is dribble, do a move, step back 3, dribble, do a move, sidestep 2, dribble, do a move. And if it's a clear lane to the basket, then he may get to the paint. But once he gets there, he's going to try and go up and under and do all of this other stuff to avoid contact instead of trying to get through the contact and maybe get the and one. So he's one of these many players in the NBA, and you speak on this a lot. These guys who ran through all of the drills coming up doing AAU basketball and Nike camps and all of this other stuff, right? So they do all of the drills, they do the cones, they know how to do the side steps, they can dribble like crazy, they know how to do all of these step backs. So they do the drills. They got the drills down to a science. And you know, they say that these guys are more skilled, and they get into the game, and this is how they try to generate their offense. And if they're hot that night and the shots are going in, it looks good.
Right.
But if they're not going in because their degree of difficulty is up here, they
Correct.
don't have a plan B.
Correct.
They don't play off the ball. They ain't trying to get playoff screens. They ain't trying to get their cuts. They not trying to get into the paint. They not trying to do any of this. Free throw line, none of that. Layups, putbacks, crash the boards. They're not doing any of those things. They are a one-trick pony, and if that one trick isn't working, they're basically just going to continue to try to shoot their way back into the game.
Right.
And then they're 14 for 29, and yeah, they got their 30-plus points, but in all likelihood, the team probably lost the game. Jason Tatum is the poster child for approaching playing that way.
Right.
And so long as he continues to approach playing that way, there will always be speculation as to whether he's even the best player on his own team, let alone being somebody who's good enough to be the best player on a team that can win the championship. So maybe this year by default, he's the best player on a team that can win the championship. But as you suggested, they have an extremely well put together roster. Correct. So he can be the best player by default. But during the finals, he has looked like at best the third best player on the team
throughout the whole playoffs.
So that's his problem. And until he figures that out, he will never be an elite player, in my opinion. He'll just be another one of these guys who's tall and can dribble, pass, and shoot. And that's it.
Yeah, he's like this generation's Paul George.
Yeah.
So smooth game, nice to watch, difficult shots. But when it comes to certain moments, it's like, where you at, bro? Like all that smooth stuff, like when is this going to translate into like ripping the heart out of somebody's chest? You know, Reggie Miller would do that to people. He would rip the heart out of people's chest. I mean, there was times where my heart would stop when he played the Pacers because he was wide open. And it's not even the Steph Curry, it's not even Steph Curry hitting threes type stuff. It's like, it's none of that. I mean, it was a different time and age. But even then, man, when he was open, I was, And so when Tatum be shooting, I'm like, that's off, bro. Like, that's off, bro. I'm not scared of this. And so, and this is us watching us, play the Celtics all the time. And, Celtics fans can attest to this. We've had their number. And we've had their number because all this talent, they don't know what to do with it. So much like how Shaq was saying, he's a talented guy, physically gifted, out of this world. And so he should be the best basketball player on the team, but he wasn't. And so, again, I applaud him for admitting that. There's not so many people who do that, especially basketball players. But for him to admit that, I give him kudos. And so we'll see what happens with all of this stuff, man. Hopefully Tatum don't take this weird and he just ride this out and just be on a good team and then win for years instead of trying to be his own superstar garbage or somebody try to pull that number. Like whatever what this roster is, like high key, they can do this again next year and, mess around, try to three-peat because this roster is thick enough. So, good luck for him. And let's see what happens, man.
Yeah. I just don't think he's built for it. I just think he's a great high-end player. Yeah. And there's no slouch in that. But this notion of superstar, you have to have a well-rounded game and you have to be able to be effective and score in a multitude of ways. You got to be able to play on and off ball, and you have to be able to positively affect the team without constantly needing to have the ball in your hands doing stuff all the time. And you got to be able to know how to generate easy baskets for yourself. And he's not someone who can do that. I've been watching him for enough years to see, all of his step back threes and all of this kind of stuff. That's his game. That's his game. So it is what it is.
Oh, and last thing, and not to say that they don't need Tatum on the team, because clearly they wouldn't even be here in this position if Tatum's not on the team. So they need him. He is valuable, but the overhypeness is starting to show its head.
Well, it's the questions over whether he's the face of the NBA.
It's because he's not even the face of his own team at this.
Exactly.
Point.
Yeah. If you put Jaylen Brown's approach to playing basketball in Jason Tatum's body, you'd have a superstar player. But then again, that's how you know God exists, because you can't just put the perfect vessel out there. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Hey man, they
So-
said Jordan walked on water, bro. At least that's what they told me.
Yeah, I guess.
That's what they tell me. I don't believe that, but that's what they said.
Oh man.